looked for housing recently, you probably know how frustrating it can be with low inventory, high interest rates, and everything in between.
A local real estate agent and developer is shining a light on the struggles and sharing his experience. Tom Landry is here with us to talk about his new short book, Priced Out of Portland. Good morning, Tom. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
You've been in this business for quite some time.
Yep.
I've interviewed you, many times over the years.
Right.
So many challenges. We've seen this, real estate market morph into something you probably never expected.
Exactly.
What inspired you to write this book?
Yeah, I mean, it was the firsthand experience I had with buyers and sellers. And you think on the seller side that it would be great because we're buoyed by the market and you can cash out and get all this money for a house you probably paid a lot less for years ago. But where are you going to move? You're also buying in that inflated market. So a lot of sellers are frozen. They can't really figure out what to do with that situation because they don't have that next property to downsize in or upsize in. And then first-time homebuyers, obviously. I think you and I have talked about your own struggles, right? Where it's bidding wars after bidding wars. And you would have thought post-COVID that would have changed. It would have cooled a little bit. It really hasn't. One of the big stats, Katie, that I looked at, and I really dove into the numbers from MARIAS, the Maine Real Estate Information System, and I looked at single families, condos, and 2 to 4 families, because that's really what people who we're talking about, right? The real buyer, not this investment buyer, are going to look at. So one of the shocking stats that I pulled up is in the last decade, prices have gone for about $232,000 for a single family home, the median sale price, to this past year, $550,000.
Oh gosh.
I just checked this morning, they're already at $570,000. Now, if you project ahead by 2030, and you use those numbers, which are not outlandish, the median sale price for a single family home in Portland will be over $1.2 million.
It's so hard to
Exactly.
conceptualize.
That's the reaction.
That's
the
it's
reaction.
jaw-dropping,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So people have to go an hour away, right? Or 2 hours away. And is that great for a whole bunch of things, for our lifestyle, for our environment? No.
Right. So true.
Well, how does this initiative of rezoning a city have to do with your book?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking. That really was the catalyst for moving what I've been working on in the background for a couple of years now. Literally, I would pick it up, I'd put it down. And Portland is going through what they call Recode. And if you want to learn about it, you can go onto recodeportland.me, recodeportland.me. And there was phase 2 of that. Now, this has been going on for a decade, right? So the city wants to be done with it. Phase 2 happened. They were going to turn it over to the planning department. I was going to turn it over to the planning board and then take that to city council. They paused that, which is really fantastic because we got to do what I'm calling do Recode right. This document has not been touched like this in literally the last 70 years. I'm calling it the most consequential document our city has put out in the last 100 years. So the last century, this is the most important thing, the most important document our city's put out.
Why is that?
Well, it affects every single piece of land, right? And if we want to impact housing, and we want to create more affordable housing, we want to create these communities where it really goes back to how we were living 100 years ago. And if you look at historic pictures of like Woodford's Corner, there were movie theaters and tall buildings and mixed-use buildings, and we've forgotten that. You know, during urban renewal, the 50s and 70s, when the flight of people out of urban areas, we went through a decline. Now, the boomers and the millennials, the 2 biggest segments of the population, are moving urban, and it's causing stress. So we need to upzone, we need to create bigger buildings in these urban areas, and then we need to rezone. As much as 90% of our city is not zoned for mixed-use buildings.
Wow.
And it's like, we wouldn't think that, right?
Yeah. So you have some solutions as well in your book. Can you share maybe one of those, or what can people find? What are you hoping that, you're trying to help people too?
Exactly. I look at this a little bit different. I'm a realtor, I'm a developer, I have a background in marketing, but also in process improvement. And as I was going through my developments and I'm working with people, I'm a participant observer in the process, and I try to bring that. So if you want to learn more, you want to read the book, I encourage you to do that. It's a quick read. You can go on to homewithtomlandry.com, and the book is called Priced Out of Portland. There's a button on there. But there's also a segment on there which is my recommendations to the planning board, which is called Recode Recommendations. And it's my about 15 bullets that I have on there. One of them is looking at IL zones, these industrial zones throughout our city. And a good chunk of our city, you think about East Bayside, where Coffee by Design and Cyclemania and all these places. Exactly. You can't have residential housing in most of that area. Why not? Years ago, 75, 100 years ago, we had businesses and industries that were toxic, and you didn't want to mix residential with that, but that's gone now. Let's look at our industrial zones. That's just one of the solutions, and upzone, and make them places where people can live.
Definitely.
I think this is the final question, Tom. So the discussions are happening this weekend, is that right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
who's
yeah.
the target audience there?
Yeah. Well, everybody. You
Okay,
know,
great.
you're going to get something in the mail if you live in Portland, which is the postcard inviting you to this event. And that is Saturday and Sunday at our 104 Washington Avenue office from 11 to 1. I'm going to have lunch and refreshments there. And it's really designed to be a learning session. So this is something that most people aren't even aware of. And again, it's the most consequential document our city's produced. So pay attention, get involved. Go to homewithtomlandry.com and look at our book.
All right, congrats on the book, and thanks for joining us to tell us more, Tom.
Thanks, Kate.